Dark clouds over the city, ready to crush it. That morning, Wang Ning followed her usual routine, waking up at 7, taking a bath, dressing up, toasting bread, pouring coffee powder into the coffee machine, slicing fruit, and frying eggs. She prepared breakfast for 2. She had hardly slept the night before, yet her mind was still clear. She waited for her husband, who usually got up later, to freshen up. Standing by the window with a cup of coffee, she suddenly thought of a poem. The smoggy weather had persisted for 2 weeks. The entire city felt dirty and ambiguous. Smog was intangible, yet heavy. It felt like something was pressing on her heart, making it hard to breathe. Like in a nightmare where your limbs are pinned down, leaving you unable to move, floating, unable to gather strength, wanting to scream but unable to. Compared to this weather, she would rather have a sandstorm. It would sweep over everything, wild and brutal, leaving no room for resistance. Anyone who tried to speak out would end up with a mouthful of sand. But it would come and go quickly, leaving only a mess behind. Unlike the smog, which, while seemingly harmless on the surface, would corrode and destroy you from within. Wang Ning still remembered the famous sandstorm of 2007, where the media excitedly reported on the city covered in a golden dust. She and Zhang Meng were newlyweds then, and they eagerly drove around taking photos. It's been 8 or 9 years since then. Yes, they once had such good times. People often said that the 7-year itch was the most dangerous. But they had passed through it peacefully. Who would have thought that what was meant to come would still come today? Yesterday, Zhang Meng came home, burdened with thoughts. She noticed, but after all these years, she had grown used to him not speaking unless she asked. After dinner, Wang Ning sat on the sofa playing on her iPad, while Zhang Meng wandered around the living room like a headless fly before finally standing in front of her. Wang Ning, listen to me. I want a divorce. At that moment, Wang Ning looked up, feeling as if it were all unreal. Zhang Meng stood there, with a serious expression. She looked at this familiar person saying something that sounded like a line from a TV drama. She almost blurted out, "Zhang Meng, did you take the wrong medicine?" She stared at his face for several minutes, while Zhang Meng turned his face away, avoiding her gaze, not moving or speaking. It was then that she finally realized, yes, this was real. Why? Is there someone else? The words she spoke also felt like a TV drama script. Yes, it was a girl named Xiaoqin from his company. On a business trip, he had too much to drink, and she came to his room. Then she told him she was pregnant. Wang Ning, I know it might sound shameless, but after she got pregnant, I accompanied her for a checkup. Seeing that tiny child on the ultrasound, the surge of emotions I felt inside shocked even me. I realized I wanted to be a father. I want to have my own flesh and blood. I want to watch my offspring grow. Wang Ning, I know this is unfair to you, but I hope you can understand me. I have to give her and her child a proper place in life. Flesh and blood. Offspring. Father. Wang Ning and Zhang Meng had been married for over 8 years without children, claiming to others that they planned to be child-free. But both had gone to the hospital for tests, and the results showed that Wang Ning was unable to conceive. At that time, they were so deeply in love that it didn't bother them. They both vowed to love each other like a child for the rest of their lives. If they did have a child, they might end up like San Mao said, being jealous of the child for taking away each other's love and might even be tempted to mistreat it. They lived happily together for several years. Zhang Meng had a great job with a decent income. Wang Ning had conflicts with her previous boss, so she simply resigned and stayed at home, enjoying a leisurely life of music, painting, poetry, tea, and flowers. Their two-person world was quite pleasant. But the issue of children was always a buried landmine between them. Now, it had finally exploded. Wang Ning had long anticipated this possibility. Her mother and her married female friends with children often hinted at this outcome, so she was quite calm. She even thought, now they would be satisfied. She could almost imagine how they would talk about it behind her back, using a tone that seemed regretful but was actually filled with satisfaction. Zhang Meng was still speaking incessantly in front of her, as if he had held it in for so long and was finally getting the release he needed by telling her everything in one breath. It also seemed like he was afraid that if he stopped, he would lose the courage to say it again. He planned to give her an apartment, a car, and a few thousand yuan a month in alimony until she found a job. The offer was quite generous. Wang Ning looked at the familiar face in front of her, watching that mouth open and close, spitting out many unfamiliar words. She couldn't help but let her mind wander, recalling the young man from over a decade ago in university. He had walked with her in the snow for over half an hour. He wanted to kiss her but was afraid of being too forward. In such cold weather, his palms were still sweaty. She remembered that mouth gently leaning down to cover her lips. In that moment, the whole world trembled, and they were like magnets, tightly attracted to each other. They held each other so tightly that there wasn't even a tiny gap between them. After the kiss, she shyly lowered her head, and Zhang Meng, excited, picked her up and spun her around several times. That was their first kiss, hers, his, theirs. Now, Zhang Meng was feeling both guilty and in pain. He sat in front of her, sobbing, mumbling about how sorry he was and how helpless he felt. This choice was painful for him too. It wasn't that he didn't love her. He just wanted a child. She could see it clearly. They had been together for so many years, and she understood every little thing about him. She had comforted him countless times, soothed him, supported him. He was her lover, but also like her younger brother, her child, her family. Seeing him in pain, she habitually wanted to comfort him. Even though at that moment, her own heart felt like it was being squeezed in a giant's hand, about to be crushed into powder. Zhang Meng wanted his own child. Perhaps it was just like how he once had the intense desire to marry her. Wang Ning felt she had nothing left to say. She had no reason to deny him. She made only one request, to meet this Xiaoqin. That night, she quietly went to the guest room, hardly sleeping at all. Countless memories flooded her mind. At times, she felt calm, at other times, angry. She thought of the sweet moments of mutual affection from their youth, and also of the many conflicts and arguments during their married life. In reality, there is no marriage that is unbreakable. If the temptation is strong enough, all resolve becomes meaningless. And the issue of having children was a crack in their marriage. With this hidden danger, perhaps their marriage was never truly solid. Parting ways politely is better than a melodramatic scene from a TV drama. She would rather face a Zhang Meng who still tries to be responsible for everyone. They sat down in silence to have breakfast. Last night, they had already informed Xiaoqin to meet at 9. Wang Ning went to change her clothes, looking at the pale face in the mirror. She picked up her lipstick, but after a moment, she put it down. Zhang Meng, out of habit, went downstairs first to get the car, and Wang Ning followed, taking the passenger seat. Not a word was spoken between them all morning, and the car drove in silence toward the cafe where they were to meet, just like every other time they went out together. As they were almost there, Zhang Meng cleared his throat and spoke. Xiaoqin is still young, just a kid, and she's pregnant. Please don't make it hard for her. She turned her head in shock to look at him. What did he think she was going to do? Like all wives who find out about their husband's affair, cause a scene in the cafe, crying and fighting? She was stunned by the protective tone in his voice. Perhaps he himself hadn't realized that what he wanted wasn't just a child. He also wanted a new wife. She took a deep breath. The gray, heavy air seemed to press directly on her heart. When Zhang Meng finally parked the car, she spoke. I've made up my mind. I won't see her. Get yourself ready, and let's take care of the paperwork as soon as possible. There was a trace of unmistakable relief in Zhang Meng's surprised expression, though he tried to hide it. He took her hand. Ning Ning, thank you. I knew you'd understand. His voice was a bit choked up. Whether from emotion or sheer joy, it was hard to tell. Wang Ning, using the excuse of going shopping, got out of the car. She stood on a pedestrian bridge, watching from a distance as Zhang Meng, with light steps, ran towards the cafe. A few days later, at the Civil Affairs Bureau, they calmly and smoothly exchanged their marriage certificates. Wang Ning handed Zhang Meng an envelope, telling him to open it later, and without looking back, she walked to her car. Inside the envelope were the results of their medical tests from a few years ago. It was Zhang Meng who was infertile, not her. She had just thought that men cared more about this issue, and to protect Zhang Meng's pride, she never told him. She had originally planned to meet Xiaoqin at the cafe to present this report in a last attempt to save her marriage. But Zhang Meng's attitude made her realize that there was no going back. He had let Xiaoqin into his bed. The issues in their marriage might not have been just about the child. And now, giving him these results, was it an act of revenge? She saw Zhang Meng's call flashing on her phone, turned off her phone, and drove towards the airport.